There are a lot of experts out there that will tell you how to connect with your client. Find that pain point, needle it, make them need your service. Never jump into a conversation where you're trying to sell them something, but you're solving a problem. But today we're going to talk about how to connect with your customer on a whole different level. How do you connect with them using empathy? Welcome to episode 44 of the KeyHire Small Business Podcast, where we cover the issues that help owners scale their small businesses. I'm Corey Harlock, creator of KeyHire Solutions, and I'll be your host. Our guest today is Jim Matuga. He is the president and founder of InnerAction Media, where they help companies simplify and clarify their marketing messages so that the right people will listen and respond, something we'd all love. He's helped businesses of all sizes across all industries, and he uses his expertise in video production and digital content development. And last May, he actually launched a SaaS product called Storymaker, which is an AI SaaS program that helps you process the power of generative AI to create custom marketing messages for small businesses and nonprofits. Matt, let's bring Jim on. Jim, I told you I was going to give it a whirl, but man, it's a mouthful.
You did great, man. Great to be here, Corey. Thanks for the great introduction. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. And we appreciate you having on the show. Now, you said you're sitting up in West Virginia, the best Virginia.
That's right.
You said you have 2 feet of snow.
Well, just under that. Yeah.
Man, do you have any ski hills out there?
Oh yeah. We're home to Snowshoe Mountain Resort here in the heart of West Virginia, God's country.
Very cool. Do you ski?
I used to until I started, pricing out the cost of a total knee replacement. And
there you go. It's usually one of those things. We were just up skiing in Mount Tremblant, Quebec for the Christmas holidays, and
that's great.
I touch wood every time I come home. I got 2 young kids, and I try to keep up with them.
Oh
and
yeah.
I said this is the year that they're going to be better than me, and we're getting real close to that. So I'm just grateful I come home in one piece every ski holiday now.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm a fitness buff, and one of my primary goals is not only longevity, right, and staying healthy, but injury prevention is my number one goal. So injury prevention and skiing, that goes hand in hand.
I don't know about you, Jim, but I'm doing a lot of stretching, a lot of hip and shoulder mobility, and a lot of balance work these days.
Exactly, man. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, the older you get, the mobility and the balance just goes to shit.
I love it.
Cool. All right. So we're talking about kind of hero versus guide type stuff today. And we wanted to talk about building followers and loyal customers through empathy. We always like to start with a definition or defining, what we're talking about. So walk us through, kind of give us a 30,000-foot overview of what all that means.
Yeah, sure. Corey, again, thanks for having me on. I come at marketing from a story perspective, and the premise that I believe is very true is that most people in business, especially here in the US, most people communicate. They do a pretty good job of communicating. They're advertising, their PR, earned media, paid media, social media. They do a pretty good job of communicating, but very few connect. And that to me is the differentiator. And how do you connect with somebody? How do you reach the heartstrings of a potential client? I don't care if you're in healthcare or finance or banking or whatever industry you're in, construction, it could be B2B, B2C. It could be blue collar, white collar. How do you connect with somebody?
Right.
And how do you bring them in? Well, to me, the answer lies in that one word, story. And so it's kind of a daunting thing. How do you tell a compelling story from a marketing?
Sounds like a lot of work, Jim.
Yeah, it does. Well, so we begin, and I can break it down in its most basic form. You have to look at the hero of the story. Every great story, I don't care if it's a movie or a book or whatever, a fable, a tale. Every great story has a hero, and in marketing, I believe that the hero is not you, the company, the brand. The hero is the person you serve,
right?
Your customer, right? Your customer, your client, however you refer to that. And so how do you connect with somebody on that level, put yourself in their shoes. That is the essence of empathy, right? You understand what they're going through. You understand the real motivator for them. Is it an external factor? Is it an internal factor?
Right.
Most brands, most companies communicate. Using that word communicate, they communicate their features. We have this many people on our team. We have this much square footage here's our beautiful building right on our website. They see their fleet of their vehicles.
Yeah.
We're a heating and air conditioning company, and we've got 15 service vehicles, and they're all beautifully wrapped. Look at them. And at the end, when the customer comes to that website, they're thinking, what are you going to do for me? What's in it for me? You've heard of Whiffam, right? What's in it for me?
Yeah. Must be expensive. All those trucks can't be cheap.
Well, honestly, you're conveying a story right there, right? You're communicating something in that picture. And so what I'm trying to say is, wouldn't it be better to have a satisfied customer in front of their home saying, my heat went out last winter in 15 minutes. They answered my call and they were here and I had heat in an hour. That is a story, as opposed to look at our fleet of vehicles. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's in its basic sense. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Making the hero of the story your customer, not you.
Yeah. And along that, I think, trust seems to come up a lot whenever I talk about clients and services and having that part of that story be, they showed up in 15 minutes, they quoted me, and I felt like what they said was fair and honest, and they didn't try to tack on a bunch of services because they knew I needed my heat back because I was desperate, right? They were kind and didn't take advantage and had some integrity, right? That stuff goes a long, long way.
That's right. 100%. You got it, Corey. There's an old adage
every now and again.
Well, there's an old adage that says, most people don't like to be sold, but they do like to buy. Yeah. And so if you could, kind of just lay the facts out, and I've been in sales my whole career, being in the media business and, trying to, navigate what sales used to be back in, say, the late 80s and what it is in 2025 is completely different. Again, people don't want to be sold, but if you lay out the information, you have authority. Hey, I've been here. I've done this before. Yep. I've seen this problem. Here's what we've done in the past to remedy it. I don't care what industry you're in. That works, right? Then you build that authority, and then along with that, Corey, comes trust, right? Yeah. These people have been there before. They understand my problem. They heard me. When I was talking to them, they actually listened and they reiterated my problem back to me, and they have a solution. This sounds like a reasonable opportunity to do business. And so that's what I'm getting at. And again, we're kind of doing this. You mentioned like the 30,000 foot view. In each industry, you can tweak it a little bit different. If you're selling a cardiac aortic valve replacement solution to somebody, or a hospice care solution, or a banking solution, or a personal injury solution, I don't care what it is, you can absolutely tap into that story.
Now, the word authority is always one of these strange ones, right? Because it sounds like you're the authority, and we're talking about empathy. So I just redefine authority for people, meaning I'm the expert, listen to me. It can be kind of a hard line word, right? I think we're conditioned to think of authority in that sense. So what's your definition of authority?
Yeah. So, I've heard it explained as like a subject matter expert, right? In other words, demonstrating that you know what you're talking about. And I'm not saying like, here's our awards that we've won, that could certainly add to that background, that proof, if you will, a social proof. But I'm talking about authority, understanding the problem and knowing how to get to the solution that the customer is actively looking for. I liken it to this, if you are thinking about climbing Mount Everest and you arrive at base camp and you are met with a Sherpa, and there's two Sherpas there. One says, guys, I've never done this before. I think we should go the east route. And hope you got enough supplies because it may get cold up there. Or you talk to the other Sherpa and he says, guys, a storm is coming. We're going to take the western route. I've got plenty of supplies. I've got plenty of oxygen. No need to worry because we've done this route before. We're familiar with the terrain. We're familiar with the weather pattern we're about to be hit with, and we've got you taken care of. And as a matter of fact, I've got an assistant Sherpa that's coming with us, and we know the way. We're going to show you the way, and we're going to go the way with you.
Okay.
Who are you going to go with, right?
Right.
It's the person who has demonstrated to you that they know what to do. And so that's an easy, anecdote that can kind of plant that seed with, your viewers and your listeners that this is how we can establish that authority.
Right.
It's not just it's not just about the awards. It's the fact that you've done it before. You've solved the problem before.
I think it's an important distinction, and maybe some people would call that a SME, right? Like a subject matter expert.
That's
I
right.
think in the modern day world, we all want to be a subject matter. We all want to position ourselves as subject matter experts. You said, sales has changed over the years. Just a total aside. Mm-hmm. How do you think kind of the use of social media has influenced the sales process and the way the whole sell me this pen hardline kind of sales from before, right? Calling people up and, kind of hardlining them to now it's really a much more passive process, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. And, I grew up, listening to Zig Ziglar tapes and learning how to sell as I was driving out in my first media sales job working for a local newspaper. And every mile that I went down the road, I became a little wiser. And we learned, the assumptive close and all those different tactics. And I'm not saying that those are not, they're still valid. I think they are. But the way that we approach it is completely different.
They probably look a little different than they used to, right?
Yeah. Well, think about it this way, Corey. It used to be that the mass media controlled everything, right? Radio, TV, newspaper, magazines, billboards. Now, the masses are the media. So where we used to have mass media, now we have masses own the media. And you probably have 5 or 6 media channels yourself. I have 7 or 8 myself. Everybody listening to this has at least one media channel that they are putting content.
Yeah, if they're listening or watching this, they're on a media station, right? A media channel.
Yeah, so they're a publisher. Think about that. Everybody's a publisher these days, and that's just kind of mind blowing to me. Growing up in getting into business in the late '80s, I graduated from West Virginia University with a degree in advertising back in 1988, and getting out in the world, it was pretty easy back then. There wasn't a lot of chaos in terms of media chaos and clutter and noise. You could break through pretty quickly. But today, and to your point, how do you demonstrate sales, and how do you create demand for your product? It's not easy. The principles are the same. Talking to the right people at the right time with the right message that's universal. That's never going to change in marketing. Talking to the right people at the right time with the right message. But today it's so much more complex. There's so much more media chaos. There's so much more noise. How do you break through? I'm convinced that the only way is through a compelling story. Right. And that could be a 15-second testimonial. It could be a 4-minute video showing, the process from here was the problem. Here was our opportunity to help this person. Here was our process, and here was the final result, which was victory.
Yeah. So I had another question, but it's a great segue into the next segment, right? We always like to talk about mistakes you've seen people make when they try to do this or when they try to market. And the question I had that got me thinking of that is, should people, if they're thinking of this and they're like, well, I don't know anyone who can do that and film that and edit that. Does the quality matter? Could you just do it on your iPhone and chop it up and throw it on your website?
It's a it's not a yes or no answer. I mean, it's a maybe answer. Yes, you can do, I love, user generated content or, self-generated content. I love that. It's very authentic. It could be very, very real, but it takes practice. You have to, you don't think you're going to be an expert at it the very first time you hit the record button. So what I do try to encourage people to do is, yes, do it. You're not,
right.
The first one you do is not going to be very good. Okay.
Right.
And, honestly, for me, I've been, I have a podcast. I've been doing it I'm in my sixth, I just completed my sixth season. So 6 years, never missing a Thursday, hundreds and hundreds of, interviews that I've done. The very first one that I did was horrible. I can't even watch it,
Yeah,
but,
I know the feeling, Jim. I've gone back and listened to some of the first ones we did. It's like, my gosh.
And that's a good thing, right? Because if you're not growing and you're not getting better, then what's the point? And so, having a growth mindset I think is essential. So get started with what you have, where you are, and just, try to figure out, one of the things I always try to say is like, what is the problem you're solving for? Right. So if you can identify that, okay. We mentioned we have snow here in West Virginia today. If you sell snow tires, don't just put an ad out there and say, hey guys, we got snow tires. Right. Try to tie it in. What is the problem? Hey, did you slide off the road today? Well, there's no need to. Are
you worried about driving your kids to school?
Yes.
Your kids, right?
Right.
All that good stuff.
And be out there in the shop saying, hey, we got one bay open, come in right now. And we can, you could go live. I mean, think about this. This is an amazing thing, Corey. Talking about user content, like if you're an owner and you want to create content, you can go live on Facebook right this second and reach your audience and you potentially reach hundreds, maybe thousands, tens of thousands of people with an iPhone, right? That is mind blowing. Yeah. Because just 15 years ago, to do a live shot for like a video, you had to have a satellite truck, which cost about a quarter million. You had to have an engineer. You had to rent satellite uplink time. You had to have a videographer, because I worked for a TV station. I know all the stuff on this. You had to have, somebody operating the camera, somebody back in the studio switching. I mean, it was an improbable thing to have. But
Jim, not even to mention, you had to have someone who wanted to air your story.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's the big hurdle, isn't it? Like getting someone to say, yeah, we'll come down and do this.
Exactly. I mean, think about just the technology that we have today. So yes, I encourage people to put content out there. Don't be afraid. Think it through. Absolutely think it through. Again, it could be just as simple as like, what problem am I solving for? Right. Who is my audience? What would they want to hear? Cool. How could I help them make their life better? And those are the kinds of things that I encourage. So the answer to your question is yes, do it. You can do it yourself with your iPhone. But think it through. Put a little bit of time and thought into it, and just start with what you have, where you are.
Cool. So I kind of hijacked the conversation. So what other mistakes come to the top of mind for you when it comes to trying people thinking they're telling their story, where people are really trying to tell their customer's story, but the reality is they might be telling their story.
That's right. Yeah.
So what are some of the mistakes you see there?
I think if I could put it into a sentence or so, I would just say, be intentional with your words. Words matter. And so the thing that breaks my heart is when I see people really trying to market themselves, whether it's advertising or PR, marketing, social media, whatever, when they just do it poorly, and I'm thinking it doesn't have to be that way. Just put a little bit of intentionality into it. Again, some of the tactics that we're talking about, understand what problem you're solving for. How are you helping person, eliminate failure in their life, right? Nobody wants to go down a path that's going to lead in tragedy. They want success in their life, right? Most people. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people. And so
some people really want to have failure, right? Because then they get they think it's going to give them attention and sympathy and all that.
That's right. So the most business owners want to have success and they want to help people, right? That's what they're in business for.
Okay.
Because if they're not solving a problem and they're just what's the point, right? So so that's kind of like the when I think of entrepreneurs, and I'm a huge advocate of small business and entrepreneurship, especially here in our state. I mean, it is such an important sector of our economy. We don't have a large conglomerate of Fortune 500 companies. We don't have any in West Virginia, so we have to rely on small business and mid-sized companies and even nonprofits. And I think about nonprofits a lot of times. Even they serve an important mission most times, and most of them struggle with trying to find those words. And so what I'm saying is, a failure that I see is people not just being intentional with the words that they're putting out there. Again, try to connect with people, not just communicate.
And something I kind of talk about, with KeyHire, I kind of have this 3-phase messaging approach that I reach out to people with, and I try to hit all the buying emotions, right? The scarcity, the emotional, and the logical, emotional, and scarcity buttons, right? And also running the podcast, I get a lot of people. I think sometimes we confuse the we with I. And I'm always telling people, whenever you write a message, like when I'm working with my clients, like, hey, you're gonna advertise a job. Don't write, here's what we're looking for, or here's what we expect. Write, here's what you get to do. Here's what your day will look like, right?
Love it.
And that's kind of buying into that person's kind of emotions and their journey, right?
Yep.
And I know a lot of people, when online marketing hit years ago, the biggest, I think, trap, it worked short term. I don't know if it works anymore. I'd be interested to get your point of view is, going out and selling your story. You're the expert and tell your story and la, la, la. And I don't know about you, but I get pitches all the time about, I'd love to come on and talk about my journey from my hardships and all this. I'm like, I don't care about it. And I don't think my listeners care about that, because they want stuff that can help them, right? So
that's right. Yeah.
And I think if they had changed that pitch to say, I think I can really help your listeners work through these things, because that's something I experienced, and I can kind of share that and give them some examples of how it could help them. That's a much different message than I want to tell my story, because I got an amazing story.
Yeah. And Corey, you hit on something there that I have a deep passion for as well. And that is, making sure that you're talking to the appropriate audience. We talk a lot about personas, and you probably heard that before.
Yeah.
You probably do that. So you have the buyer personas, and every business will have multiple personas. It may be 2 or 3, it may be 20 or 30. Right. And so you have to make sure that you're talking to that persona, that target group that you want to reach, with the appropriate message. There should be a continuity of your brand throughout all those stories, right? But each message should be tailored to that particular audience. That's when I'm saying and being intentional, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so when you think about that too, the owner's story might very well be very important. It could be
amazing.
It could be amazing, and it should be part of the brand story. Okay. But what I'm saying is it shouldn't be necessarily leading with that.
It shouldn't be the brand story.
That's right.
It should be adjacent, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it is important. And I don't want to say, well, you should never talk about it. It absolutely should. If it's compelling and there's a reason, the backstory a lot of times with an entrepreneur and the why that they got in, their why is a lot of times is so profound. You're like, wow.
Yeah. Amazing, right?
Yeah. But you have to first approach it from the customer's perspective first. That's the way, when I'm talking about connecting, that's what I mean. You bring that person in, be a part of your tribe, be a fan of your company, your brand, your organization. And once you do that, then you can start weaving in the other stuff. And I think it makes so much more sense. And you see some of the most successful brands, say in the last 5 years or so, they do a wonderful job of that.
It's so cool, like doing all these shows and talking to a lot of really smart people. Man, back in 2022, one of our first shows we ever did, we had a guy named Dr. Bob Johnson on, and he's actually coming back on in April, which is I'm really happy about. But
love it.
These things, if you lay them on top of each other, they all line up, because his whole thing is about communication. No one will listen to you until they believe you understand them.
Yeah.
And his what he says, and I think it's really profound, he says, you have to hold your pain and ask for more.
Yeah.
And you have to keep repeating back their pain to them until they say, that's right.
Yeah. 100%.
And when they say that, they think you understand their problem. And now they're opening to listening to your solution and why you think your solution works. And that's, as I hear you say, I'm like, I got a million different things in my head, right? So I piece it together. And that would be the opportunity when they say, yeah, you understand me and you understand my pain.
Yeah.
Only then is it a good idea as the business owner to say, okay, well, let me kind of explain to you why I understand your pain, because here's what I've been through, right? And if you had a lead with, here's what I've been through, they're going, I don't give a shit. That's not solving my problem right now. Like, you're not understanding what I'm trying to do. And I had another really smart guy once tell me, his name is Keith Kano, say, if you try to solve the problem first before they think you understand the problem, they will think you don't understand their problem. And you'll never get them to come around, because they're like, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Even though you could be bang on, but they haven't been heard, and you haven't built that bridge or that trust for them to say, okay, you get me. Now I'm willing to listen to you.
Absolutely. And Corey, I could sum that up in one sentence if you would like me to.
I'm probably way more articulate than what I just did.
Well, I can't take credit for it. It's I'm a student of leadership, and one of my favorite authors is John C. Maxwell. And he says it this way. He says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
And if you think about that, I mean, that's brilliant. I wish I would have written that, obviously, but man, that is so powerful. And if you think about that in terms of the framework of telling a marketing story, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, what other mistakes do we have, Jim? I really like what you're saying, so I keep jumping in. But is there any other kind of mistakes that jump to your mind that you see people making? You're like,
I mean, there's a lot, but those are some of the most common ones. I think we could just leave it right there, because I feel like, you articulated it very well, and hopefully I added a little value too.
Jim, I think that's the exact opposite. I don't think I've ever articulated anything well in my life.
You don't give yourself credit.
When you talk as much as I do, every now and again, you got to say something that's correct. You know what I mean? It's funny I backpacked when I was a young man, and I worked on a farm in New Zealand, and this guy had working dogs. This is going to be this is a weave, right? This is going to be a long way around, but you said just get started, right? Like, if you want to produce content, just start, but be intentional about it.
Yeah.
And this is actually influenced the way I do things. This guy had working dogs, and he did a lot of his work either on horseback or on an ATV. And so I was there, and he said, Corey, go back. He was in a paddock like 500 yards away. And he said, go back and let the dogs off the lead. I'm like, okay. So I drove back in the ATV. He's on a horse, and I let them all off, and they're all like squirrely. And then he just whistles, right? And they start running. They start running towards him. And then he gets them to work the sheep and puts them into another paddock. And I was asking about that. And he said, the first thing, when you want to have a working dog, the first command you have to give them is the run command. Just go. He said, only then can I start directing them. I can't tell them to go left or right or over here or over there if they're not moving. So the first whistle is just go, just start. They could be running in the wrong direction. And then he goes, okay. And he starts whistling, and he starts bringing them back around. Right. So when you talk about just start, just go. Then you can course correct, and you can watch it back and say, lighting wasn't very good. I don't know about you. When I started doing this, I used to and ah and so and all the time. And I had to I listened to a few of them, and I was like, ooh, that's not good. So
Yeah,
I
that's
very
great.
purposely have stopped doing that. So
Mm.
it's kind of the analogy I thought of as you were talking. It was like vivid in my brain. Just start, and
I
then
love
you
it.
can
Yeah.
start making the adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the old ready, fire, aim,
Correct. Yeah.
and,
I'm
the
a
other thing,
master at that too, Jim.
yeah, the other thing about that, that, and I love your story. I mean, it was riveting, right? You just told a great little story there, and to drive home a point. And so we're sitting here talking about how you can tell the story to make a point, or to communicate and connect with people. You just did a masterful job there. And I was like riveted. I was like, where's this going?
Where is
Okay,
it
this
going?
is
Yeah.
cool.
Cool.
But, the thing is too, and I think about this quite a bit. And, I hate to use the word mentor, but I coach a lot of young people in their career, and I don't know. It's something that, it fires me up. It recharges my batteries to talk with young people, and, just maybe speak some wisdom into them. And one of the things that, that I say a lot is, because there's this whole concept of, I just feel stuck. Corey,
Yeah.
I feel stuck. Jim, I feel stuck. And I'm like, well, the best way to get unstuck is to take a step. To your point, just go.
Yeah.
Take a step. If you're feeling stuck in your business, if you're feeling stuck in your hiring process, if you're feeling stuck, like, here we are, at the beginning of January, and, I'm like, a lot of people are stuck physically in the snow here in West Virginia. I'm like, the best thing you can do is just take a step,
Yeah.
push the gas and get moving. You can figure out what direction you want to go it's hard to make a pivot when you're stuck and you're not moving. But if you have inertia, and I don't care if that's in your business, your marketing, your personal life, whatever it is, take a step and then just take another step, and then
And
just figure it out.
it doesn't have to be a big step. It could be something really
Yeah,
small, right? Like,
absolutely.
I listen to Jordan Peterson, and he
Yeah.
talks to people that are just locked up.
Yeah.
They're depressed or whatever, and he's like, clean your room. And then he talks to them next week, and they didn't. It was just too overwhelming. And he's like, okay, clean the top drawer of your dresser.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
But then it unlocks. Okay, now we'll do the next drawer.
That's
But
right.
it's just such a tiny step, right?
That's
Like,
right.
I think we're all guilty of, I'm stuck. I gotta hit a home run, right? Well, no, hit a single, get a bunt single, do whatever.
Step up to the plate.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, take a swing, right? But
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the home run. It just has to be
That's
something
right.
leading to getting a run across the plate, which
That's
could be
right.
4 singles, right? It could be 4 singles with 2 outs.
Yeah.
And a lot of strikes along the way. So it's not a perfect roadmap.
That's
And this has been a great conversation. So let's get into, we always like to wrap up with, other than calling you, Jim, and we'll give people your contact information here in a minute. But if you had to give them your top 3 to 5 pieces of advice that they could take back to their business today to start being better at telling their story, what would you say?
Yeah. So first of all, amongst all the things we've said, get started, be intentional, all those things. I think one of the things that I'm trying to encourage people today is that there is so much technology, so many tools out there to make this process simple, easy, affordable. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that those are things that a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners particularly struggle with. They know that they need to do something with regard to marketing.
Time
right?
and money, right? Time
Yeah.
and money.
Yeah.
That's all
So-
those are the concerns.
So I am you mentioned it in the intro last year, last May, I launched StoryMaker, which is a generative AI tool that leverages ChatGPT and our story process. So we're able to take a framework like that we've just been talking about. It's a database that you fill out a couple of questions, and it prompts you with a couple of different things that you want to say. And the reason I started StoryMaker is I fell in love with the problem that we're talking about, which is people they struggle to find the words to talk about their own business. Right. And so we created StoryMaker, and I encourage whether they want to try StoryMaker or they want to try something like that. There's a lot of tools out there. When we first launched, we were one of the first ones in the marketing space last May, but here we are. And, it's I say last May, it was May 2023. So we've been out there, more than a year and a half now. But the point of it is get started with it. Embrace the technology, whether it's generative AI or some of the other marketing tools out there that can help you I recommend Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand as
Yep.
as a great book on how to tell effective marketing stories. But just get started. Try it. Don't be afraid. Embrace the technology and the tools that are out there. That's probably the first thing. And I think from a perspective of business owners, and how can they do a better job of understanding how to connect with those customers. I would just say, listen, walk the floor, listen to how your customers are interacting with your people, understanding your people, making sure that they understand the mission and that you're able to bring that authenticity into your brand through your team. I think it's very important to have that continuity, not just in the messaging, but in the deliverables as well. Right. In the days of Google reviews and Yelp reviews and all those things, I mean, it's very important that you are living up to the promises that you make out there too. So I think that would be probably the second thing that I would urge people to do. Embrace technology and the tools that are out there that make it so easy and affordable, and making sure that you're living up to those expectations.
What about if they're out here saying that's all great, but what platform do I do it on? There's 5-6 major players out there, and I don't have time to be monitoring all of them. How do you select the right platform for you?
Yeah. Are you talking about social media, Corey?
Yeah.
So I think, me personally, I mean, I'm like all in. I want to be everywhere, because like my social media channels, like my personal Facebook that's like my family, myself, my wife and I's adventures and people, but I have customers. I have paying customers that are my Facebook friends, and they love to see what I'm doing, and I'd love to see what they're doing. So that's kind of cool. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, especially for B2B. I'm a power user of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. X is very popular. Instagram, all those media channels are very important. And I would like YouTube, Vimeo. If you're doing videos, make sure that they're on social media, but they're also housed on your website. Make sure that they're housed on your Vimeo channel, your YouTube channel. So I think, and I know it could be overwhelming, but it's very important today, would
you recommend kind of pick one where you think most of your business is, give it a whirl. If you're not getting what you want out of it, maybe try another one, or would you say just do them all, and then that becomes more time?
I'm an advocate for all in, I want to be out there. And I think that, you have to, the more that you do it also, Corey, the better you'll understand, like, okay, I put this post on LinkedIn and I didn't get any interaction, right? But I put it on Facebook and I got tons. Well, that's where that content belongs, right? If you're putting something out that is getting traction, is getting engagement, you just keep doing more of that. And so just listen to your people, your audiences, right? Listen to the people, listen to your customers, ask them, what media, a simple thing to do when you have a customer come in and say, what social media channels are you on? Right. I'm not on any. Well, how do you get your news? Oh, I read the local newspaper. Yeah. That still may be a play for you, so I would listen. I think that's the most important thing is, create things, but listen to the feedback. And you were talking about, your self-coaching, right? Saying, hey, I used to say, and all, but you listened, you were responding to your own feedback and said, hey, I could change that. Same thing with this, experiment. Do not be afraid of it. Experiment and do more of what's working and less of what's not.
And so I think what I heard was, I heard you say, do them all and then see which ones click for you and focus on that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's right.
Matt put a year-end review video out, and we just talked about doing it, and he just put it up there. And he put bloopers at the end of it of me just screwing up all over the place on doing these podcasts.
Yeah,
I thought it was hilarious, and I think people enjoy seeing a little humility. And if it's not perfect, I almost think that comes off as more genuine than this perfectly polished, highly produced film. I don't know about you, but when I watch, if I see a short pop up and I'm watching it, and as soon as the camera angle switches, I just swipe because I'm like, it's produced content.
Yep.
If it's one camera and it's rough and it's all over, I'm like, okay, this potentially could be a real life thing, and I'm interested in it. But as soon as the camera angle starts switching, but they're trying to make it like it was a spontaneous thing, it's produced. I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, yeah, and there's multiple schools of thought on that. I love that you mentioned reels and shorts because that is, to me, is one of the greatest technology advances in video,
And the
and
most addictive thing ever
yeah,
created.
and so
My God.
effective, so effective. I mean, it's
I
unbelievable.
say addictive, you say effective.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
difference between a marketing person and a non-marketing person.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because yeah, something we're really engaged with a lot right now
Yeah.
is the short videos, and just like you said, it can appear almost I hate to use the word because it becomes overused, but authentic, or the reels are real, REAL, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a slice of life. Now, the one thing I would caution you for is, you don't want to see bloopers from a cardiothoracic surgeon.
No,
Yeah.
correct. Correct.
So, depending on what you're doing, if it's something that's not life or death, I definitely think that, you could have fun with it,
Yeah.
but when it needs to be serious, it needs to be serious.
For sure. If you're a manufacturing facility, you don't want to show a blooper reel of all the screwed up products you're shipping out the door.
Yeah.
All right, Jim. Well, this has been amazing. If
Thank you.
people like what they heard and they want to reach out to you and get in touch with you, let us know how we can reach you.
Yeah, the best way is on my website, which is InnerActionMedia.com, and there's links on there. They can shoot me a direct message, email. My cell phone's on there. They can call me. I would love to explore any questions that you have from your audience. I'm all about trying to add value to people, and especially entrepreneurs and business owners.
Awesome. Any other places? I know Matt had a few. What else you got there,
Yeah,
Matt?
yeah. You got my Facebook, my LinkedIn, X. I'm active on all those things. So
Okay. We'll throw your LinkedIn up there, X. Yeah.
yep.
Just type in Jim Matuga. It's a very unique name, and I'm sure all of the places to reach you with all of the online stuff you're doing, you'll be on the first page
That's great.
of,
Thank you,
of
man.
places they can reach you. Hey, man,
Yeah.
thanks so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. It's been
Yeah,
amazing.
me too. You're awesome, Corey, and I love what you're doing for the business community. Keep it up, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. There you have it, Jim Matuga. That was some really valuable and deep information for y'all. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. I'd like to thank you for tuning into the KeyHire Small Business Podcast. If you did get value out of today's episode and you want to keep up to date on our new content, make sure you leave a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode. You can even suggest topics. We're always open to taking topics from the listeners to make sure we're giving you what you want. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel here. If you prefer to listen to your podcast, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite platform by searching KeyHire Small Business Podcast. Thanks for listening. I'm Corey Harlock, and until next time, stop grinding, start growing.